It was an ordinary Tuesday evening, or at least I thought it would be. The sky was clear, the stars twinkled above, and I Saturday comfortably in my living room, mindlessly flipping through TV channels, when everything changed. A soft hum filled the air, almost like the distant whir of a generator. The lights flickered, my heart began to race, but before I could react, the most unimaginable thing happened. A glowing figure appeared right in front of me. There, standing awkwardly in the middle of my living room, was Zarnak, my extraterrestrial friend. I had met Zarnak several months ago, after a strange series of events led to his crash landing on Earth. Since then, he had become a frequent visitor, often fascinated by human customs and habits. His slender frame, luminescent skin, and large dark eyes, characteristic of the Greys, would normally send any Earthling into a state of shock, but I had grown used to his odd appearances, and over time, we had become friends. Zarnak's curiosity knew no bounds. He would ask endless questions about everything from our food to our architecture, and while some of his inquiries were interesting, others were downright awkward. Tonight would be no exception. Human, Zarnak's voice echoed in my mind. He never spoke aloud but communicated telepathically, as was the way of his species. His voice, though alien, had a certain warmth to it that I had grown fond of. I have a new question. Of course, Zarnak, I replied, trying to sound as casual as possible, though I was still adjusting to his sudden appearance in my home. What is it this time? Zarnak's eyes darted around the room for a moment before locking onto me, or rather, onto something below my waist. I noticed his gaze and felt a sudden discomfort, but I tried not to show it. What is that thing between your legs? His question came out of nowhere, and I fancy my brain short-circuited for a second, trying to comprehend whether I had heard him correctly. Excuse me, I stammered, unsure if I wanted to explain or if I was ready for the direction this conversation was heading, but Zarnak remained completely unfazed. His species didn't have the same social taboos or filters that humans did. The thing, he repeated, his eyes remained fixed on the spot. It seems to have a different biological structure from the rest of your body. I've noticed all male humans have it. What is its purpose? Why is it hidden under your clothing? Oh boy, here we go. My face flushed a bright shade of red, and I awkwardly shifted in my seat. I had prepared myself for all sorts of bizarre questions from Zarnak, but I had never expected him to ask about that. Well, it's a private part, I mumbled, hoping that vague answer would satisfy his curiosity. A private part? Zarnak blinked in confusion. What makes it private? Is it essential to your survival? I sighed. There was no getting out of this. It's not something we usually talk about openly. It's a sensitive topic among humans. Zarnak tilted his head, clearly still confused. Sensitive? Why? It seems like any other body part. Does it serve a special function? I paused, trying to think of the best way to explain it. Well, yes, it's a reproductive organ. It helps in creating new life. Zarnak's eyes widened in understanding. Reproduction, like the cellular splitting process or the spore dispersion we use on my planet. No, I replied, chuckling awkwardly. Humans reproduce differently. It's a bit more complicated. There are two sexes, male and female, and the two have to work together to create a new life. This explanation seemed to intrigue Zarnak even more. Fascinating. So, this organ between your legs is essential to the continuation of your species? Yeah, pretty much. Zarnak leaned in closer, examining me with laser-like focus. I shifted uncomfortably under his scrutiny. So why do humans cover it? If it is such an important part of reproduction, shouldn't you let it breathe freely? On my planet, reproductive spores are treated with great reverence. I bit my lip, struggling to find the right words. Well, humans are a little more modest. We like to keep certain things private. It's just a cultural thing. Zarnak nodded slowly, though I could tell he was still puzzled. I see. Your species' customs are strange, but I respect them. Still, I find it odd that something so vital to your existence is hidden away. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of this conversation. Yeah, humans can be pretty weird sometimes. Zarnak straightened up, his curiosity momentarily satisfied. Thank you for explaining. I now understand why this private part is so significant, though I must say, it is still strange to me. My people are far more open about reproduction. Well, we're not all that different, just different approaches, I guess, I said with a shrug, trying to steer the conversation away from the awkwardness. Zarnak nodded thoughtfully, his large eyes glimmering with fascination. Your species continues to intrigue me. I learn something new every time I visit. I smiled, grateful that the conversation had moved on. I'm glad I could help. Suddenly, Zarnak's head snapped toward the window. His senses, far sharper than mine, picked up on something outside. It is time for me to leave, he said, his voice urgent, but I will return with more questions soon. Human. And just like that, before I could even say goodbye, Zarnak disappeared in a flash of light, leaving me alone in my living room, still reeling from the bizarre conversation. I sat there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened, and then burst into laughter. Who knew that an alien could make such an awkward situation even more uncomfortable? But then again, that was Zarnak, always curious, always unpredictable. As the hum of his departure faded, I realized that no matter how strange his questions might be, I was lucky to have a friend like Zarnak. After all, not many people could say they had an alien buddy with such an insatiable curiosity. It certainly kept life interesting. And with that, I leaned back on the couch, bracing myself for whatever outlandish question Zarnak would ask next time. It had been a week since Zarnak's last visit, and while I had expected his return, I wasn't sure I was ready for it. After all, our last conversation had been one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. Yet, as strange as it was, I couldn't help but wonder what he would be curious about next. Zarnak was unpredictable, and every encounter left me with more questions about the universe and myself than answers. The evening started like any other. I sat there at my kitchen table, munching on a leftover slice of pizza, when that familiar hum began to fill the air again. The lights flickered, and my pulse quickened. He was back. Sure enough, in a flash of light, Zarnak appeared in the center of the room. He looked just as he had before, tall, with silver skin shimmering faintly in the dim light, his large black eyes reflecting everything around him. This time, though, his posture seemed different, more excited, if that was possible for someone of his species. Human, his voice resonated in my mind, filling me with the sense that he had come prepared with yet another burning question. I have returned. I set my pizza down, a mix of curiosity and nervousness bubbling up inside me. Zarnak, I greeted, offering him a small nod. It's good to see you again. What brings you back so soon? Zarnak wasted no time. His gaze locked onto me, and I could feel the intensity of his inquisitive nature buzzing in the air. After our last discussion, I did much research, he began. I have been studying human biology, culture, and behaviors more extensively. However, I have encountered more questions that require your clarification. Of course, he had more questions. I should have expected as much. Okay, shoot, what's on your mind? Zarnak's head tilted slightly, his expression unreadable but clearly focused. In my observations, I have noticed a distinct difference between the sexes of your species. We touched briefly on reproduction, but there is more I wish to understand. What is the purpose of the female reproductive organs? Do they also serve a dual function as yours do? I nearly choked on my pizza. Oh boy, here we go again. Well, I fumbled for the right words, once again thrust into a conversation I never thought I'd be having. How did one explain human anatomy and societal norms to an alien? And why was I the one tasked with this? I cleared my throat, stalling for time. You see, Zarnak, females have different reproductive organs from males. While they serve the same ultimate purpose to create life, there are some, structural differences. Zarnak's eyes widened slightly, his fascination growing with every word. Structural differences. Can you elaborate? I need to understand the full picture. I sighed internally, realizing there was no easy way out of this. Okay, so, the female reproductive organs are primarily internal. They have ovaries, which produce eggs, and a uterus, where a baby grows after fertilization. The part you're probably thinking of, well, it's called the vagina, and it connects the internal reproductive organs to the outside of the body. Zarnak blinked slowly, absorbing every detail. I see. So, both male and female humans must work in tandem for reproduction. This is quite different from the methods of my species, where genetic material is exchanged through atmospheric particles. Yeah, it's pretty different, I agreed, trying to steer the conversation away from further awkwardness. Human reproduction is a bit more direct. Zarnak remained thoughtful for a moment, then spoke again, his tone more serious this time. I have also observed another peculiar behavior among your species, this notion of immodesty you mentioned. Why do humans feel the need to cover these reproductive organs if they are essential to life? Why are they considered private? I knew this question was coming. It was only a matter of time before Zarnak delved into the complexities of human society. Well, humans have a lot of social norms that dictate what is considered appropriate or inappropriate to show in public. It's not just about reproduction, it's about privacy, comfort, and sometimes even control. We like to keep certain things personal. Zarnak's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was trying to grasp the concept. But you do not hide your arms, or your head, or your feet. Why are these other parts, which are no less a part of your body, treated differently? It's hard to explain, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. A lot of it comes down to cultural values, religion, and traditions. Some societies are more open about the human body, while others are more conservative. It's just how things have evolved over time. Zarnak paused, considering my words. Fascinating. So these customs are not biological, but rather learned behaviors passed down through generations. Exactly, I said, relieved that we were moving into more abstract territory. It's all learned behavior. Humans are complex creatures. We've got emotions, traditions, and beliefs that shape the way we interact with each other and the world around us. Zarnak nodded slowly, as if pieces of a puzzle were finally falling into place. This explains much of the confusion I have experienced in observing your species. My kind do not have such intricate social constructs. Our society is more transparent, in every sense of the word. I can imagine, I said, thinking about how much simpler life might be without all the unwritten rules and taboos humans had created. But that's part of what makes us human. Our complexities are both a blessing and a curse. Zarnak's expression softened, and for a moment, I felt a strange connection between us. Despite our vast differences, there was a shared understanding, a realization that, at our core, we were both just beings trying to make sense of the universe in our own way. I have much to learn from you, human, Zarnak said after a long pause. Your species is both intriguing and perplexing. There is beauty in your complexity, though I still do not fully understand it. That's okay, I replied with a smile. I don't think most humans fully understand ourselves, either. Zarnak's eyes gleamed with amusement, or at least what I interpreted as amusement. Perhaps that is what makes your species so unique. You are constantly evolving, constantly questioning. It is both admirable and puzzling. Before I could respond, the familiar hum returned, signaling Zarnak's impending departure. I must go now, he said,